All right, you guys know the drill. What we're doing right now is we're going through the creative finance questions that I get on a daily basis, and this one is a doozy. Is a seller liable for the mortgage payments if the buyer defaults on a subject to? Let's get into it. All right, guys, so I'm taking these questions from the Creative Finance with Morby Facebook page. Right now, we're at 21,300 active members. Super amazing and proud of our team for building this out. Our goal is to get to about 50,000 people by the end of the year. It is unbelievable how many of these people are active and working and trading deals with each other, also giving really, really good advice. I mean, I could go on just in every day. It's hundreds of posts, people squatting up and helping each other. Like, in the last 30 minutes, people have made like 100 posts. It's super active. We're super proud of it. And this question comes up a lot. It is an absolutely amazing question. Is the seller liable for the mortgage payment if the buyer defaults on the mortgage? The answer is yes. Absolutely yes. And this is something that is very important, the way that we talk to sellers on subject to and even seller finance, right? We already know the difference between subject to and seller finance, right? We've done videos about that. If I buy a house subject to, right? So I have a seller sells the house to me subject to, and I decide I'm going to wholesale that to another buyer, which I can do legally, and we do it from time to time. In fact, last week we sold a deal in Florida for $20,000 assignment fee for a house at full retail. So absolutely, we do it all the time. Now, if that buyer that I wholesaled it to defaults on the payments, the way I structure it for myself is that I have the first right of refusal to buy that deal back. Now, I'm a scaled operation, I have money in the bank, and absolutely I'm willing to, if let's say that buyer defaults on the payments, what's great is that I have this buyer sign a deed in lieu of foreclosure outside of close of escrow, because a lot of title companies are silly and they don't want to do this, and closing attorneys are like, whoa, this is kind of new to me. Well, so is just about everything. Wholesale is so funny because there's title companies that are like, no, wholesaling is illegal, which it's not. Creative finance is illegal, which it's not. Oh my gosh, it's been done for 100+ years. So what we do is we have our buyer sign a pre-signed and notarized deed in lieu of foreclosure that I have the right to file if that buyer ever defaults on the payment. What does that document do? That document allows me to go down to the recorder and get that property back without having to go through a full judicial foreclosure, right? If that buyer is late or defaulted 30 days, I give them a warning. I go, hey, you have 15 days or else I'm gonna go down to the recorder and take this property back. And now I have to evict that person for sure. I have to get them out of the house. But the good thing is I don't have to foreclose on them. So for me in that position, I already made $20,000 assigning it to that buyer. And if that buyer defaults, let's say they're $4,000 behind, I'm just making up numbers. Now I have to catch up that $4,000, pay for any repairs or damages they've done, but then I have that property that I can take back and I can go and do that again and get another $20,000. So yes, the answer is yes, the seller is liable if the person in the middle is an idiot and doesn't know how to structure it properly. So structuring your deals properly is super important, and this is the way that we structure it. I never just assign a deal to an end buyer without giving myself a good position, and I put a lien against the property that states I have the right to execute the property and get the house in my name if that buyer ever defaults. So pay attention to that. Make sure that if you are buying a property subject to, you have the right to buy it back if you choose to do so. Now, I've seen other people do this same thing where, they buy a house subject to and they introduce the buyer and the seller together, which is what we do if we just do a clean wholesale. We introduce the buyer and the seller together so that they can communicate and we just get to pay a fee. Now the seller, if the buyer ever defaults, can start communicating with the buyer directly without our involvement, so I can continue on with my business and not be interrupted. So pay attention to the way that you as an individual have your business structured. Do you have money in the bank? Do you have a partner? Do you have somebody that can back you up? If that buyer defaults, can they put you in a position where you can buy that house back? If not, then just introduce the seller and the buyer together, which has happened multiple times. In fact, I did a deep dive on a property a couple of weeks back on Sunday service. The property address is 78 Maddox in Ansley Park, Atlanta, Georgia. I bought the house for $1.3 million, seller finance, And the wholesaler who brought the deal to me just introduced me to the seller. The seller's name is Jillian. I worked out a deal directly with her, and she knew that Maurice Grant, the gentleman who brought the deal to me, made a $10,000 assignment fee. She knew that. Sellers are perfectly fine with people making money. They just don't like when people hide details from them. So do yourself a favor, full disclosure on how you're doing things. Now, a lot of this is gonna go over some people's heads, and that's okay. What I want people to do is say, Pace, you spoke too fast. You said this one thing. I don't know what that means. Comments, guys, comments, because you see that I answer questions. I come in here and I deep dive on things for at least, what have I been recording? This is a good solid 5 minutes of answering one question. So, depends on your business, unfortunately, but I gave you 2 scenarios. Either A, introduce the seller and the buyer together directly, let them know you're making a fee. That's the way I teach my students at subto.com. Then I also, if not, the seller sells the house to me subject to, I then assign that to an end buyer, and I put a contract together with that end buyer that says, if you ever default, hombre, I get the property back and I can do this again. Okay? You can do anything as long as there's disclosure and you're not taking advantage of people. So keep that in mind. If you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, do me a favor, go share this with somebody, go share it in another Facebook group, and just let people know that I'm here to give value so we can expand and expand and expand this amazing community that we have. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of The Creative Tip.